Growing mortgage stress and home loan defaults. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here and welcome to another episode of Heiser Says. Grab your stein of coffee and let's check out this article from the ABC tying into the growing levels of mortgage stress that's going on out there and a rise in home loan defaults. Now this seems to contradict what we're receiving or what we've read from, from the banks, at least from NAB, that they're not seeing a significant increase in default. Sure, they're going up, but they're not at pre-COVID levels yet. So here's the thing, guys. You got to, as I've been saying, we're going to be hammered with the negative news. Now, this is a sad story about this young couple. They're going through some tough times financially, getting a home. We'll see what's happening here. But, I mean, is it just me or isn't that just a part of life? You go through these periods when, times are more challenging, times are tougher, maybe, money's a bit short and you've got to make some adjustments or do some more work or just through no fault of your own, bad luck, something happened. That's why you've got to have an emergency fund. Or maybe you trusted the news and the RBA that they wouldn't increase rates until 2024 and you realized it's all bullshit. So let's check this one out. So a growing number of Australians in mortgage stress amid a rise in home loan defaults. Australians are defaulting on their home loans at growing rates as the number of borrowers at risk of mortgage stress peaked at levels not seen since 2008, just before the GFC hit. Now, we're not going to have a repeat of the GFC, at least in Australia. Or we might have our version of a repeat of the GFC, but we didn't have people rushing, dumping their houses on the bank, and a flood of property sitting there on the market. That hasn't happened in Australia, has it? You've got people who are expecting and waiting and hoarding their silver and living in garages to come and jump on the property market. I mean, good luck. The new data, which paints a grim picture of Australia's cost of living crisis, comes as Michelle Bullock prepares to give her first speech as incoming governor of the Reserve Bank. And I think we'll go through that in another article. Borrowers already feeling the pain of dramatic interest rate rises are also nervously watching what the RBA will do when it meets in the first week of September. This year, hundreds of thousands of households have rolled off historically low interest rates fixed during the pandemic, and another 450,000 home loans will expire next year. Yeah, and we're among those. Now, for a reminder, I'll bring up the good old cashy rate here, guys. 0.1% was insane. We're returning to historical levels of the cash rate. And people are starting to experience how crap it is when everything costs a lot more money. We'll have a look at another video. I want to go through the ABS statistics about companies going under and small businesses going under. A lot of that's discretionary spending, guys. That's the people tightening their belts. Roy Morgan research, to be released today, a few days ago, reveals 1.5 million or 29% of borrowers were at risk of mortgage stress in July 2023, a number higher than during the GFC. Okay, now what is mortgage stress? Let's bring up this definition here. This is, hang on, we've got low income. Well, that's good to know. Hang on, I need to change it. I should be more organized as a YouTuber here. I really should. All organized and thingamajigs and then edit it. And yeah, but, I just had a meeting, so I'm having a coffee and relaxing now. This is winding down between work. So this is housing stress. And it's not exactly mortgage stress, but it's similar. Typically described as lower income households that spend more than 30% of their gross income on housing costs. So the lower income households, and we have what lower income is here. Nope, that's lateral surveillance. This is lower income. The 18%, so 20% of households, the lowest equivalized disposable household incomes. So the bottom 20% of households are the ones that are going to really be at stress at that 30%. I would make the argument that there are a lot of people who are spending more than 30% of their household income on their mortgage, and they may still be doing it better than when they were saving to get a deposit and they were renting as well. Although, big asterisks, I don't know if that's going to be the 2%ers. So the 10,000 people that got those 2% mortgages, government guaranteed, or the 5% mortgages, they may not be. So while the percentage of people affected is lower than in 2008, the number of Australians at risk is higher due to growth in population and the number of people in the mortgage market. Okay, so the percentage is lower. So there you go. Less people are affected. Notice how they frame these things to create fear and get the scary headlines. And it's how you do it. It's how you do it, guys. You know, I'm just becoming so cynical about all this constant barrage of fear news. Maybe I've seen too many hysterical or drama news where it's all collapsing. You know, quick, get to your bunkers. The market can remain irrational longer than our entire lifespans. Okay, so you could be completely right that there's going to be a huge housing correction. And Australian housing collapses. Yeah, in 2075. What good does that do you? It also shows the number of borrowers battling to pay off home loans has steadily risen since the RBA began its aggressive run of interest rate rises in May last year. Roy Morgan Chief Executive Michelle Levin said the real impacts were felt when people lost their jobs. Yes, and they haven't started losing their jobs yet. Their income disappears or gets halved if one of the two lose their jobs, she said. So unemployment is going to be something to keep an eye on, and cost of living going up is going to be really challenging. Well, we haven't really had a recession in Australia since I was a kid. Remember the recession Australia had to have? I remember that during the 80s. All of a sudden, my father's construction company work got a lot quieter. Got really quiet. I was worried as a child because you just hear things in passing and watch the news. Probably shouldn't have been. We ended up moving to Queensland, actually. But that was the last real recession. The recession we had before that, just recently, that wasn't a real recession, everyone. Money was flowing to everyone, everywhere, like anything. But don't get me wrong, there will be some sectors that are going to feel a recession. That will be, maybe not the whole country, but you'll get discretionary spending portions of the economy that are going to be hit. And I bet you it's going to be small business and retail will be the first ones to cop it. Because, well, how much of it is discretionary? How much of it are cheaper options? The sad thing is, you're going to get more and more of a shift towards big business. All of the inflation factors mean less money to go around. There are not any indicators that I can see that suggest mortgage stress is going to disappear or even reduce. They're all pointing in the wrong direction. Yeah, times are going to get tough. What do you expect is going to happen when rates go up? And people are going to have to make lifestyle choices. I mean, here's the thing. The media paints the average Aussie as ABC seems to paint the average Aussie as some dim-witted idiot that doesn't have their finances together. You're always going to have a percentage of people that are going through the process of learning the hard way. That's never going to change. So you'll always see articles. But that's not necessarily an indication of reality, is it? So if you're constantly consuming this stuff, painting it in one direction, you get a warped perspective. And maybe it feeds into your own biases. It wouldn't take much. So Cody Briggs and his partner, Monique McCall. Why don't people get married anymore? Let me know why. You might as well. You're living together. You got kids together. You got a mortgage together. You're virtually married. Come on. I'm really turning into a demi-boomer, aren't I? So they started building their dream home in Perth's southeast suburbs in 2020. But construction delays, cost blowouts, and the tight rental market forced the couple to buy another home before Monique gave birth to their first child. Oliver, well, why did that force you to buy another home? Couldn't you keep renting? Or maybe they couldn't get a rental. Maybe that's what it was. It wouldn't take much to drop us into the red. We're just running the line right now, he said. Possibly the next repayment, the next stage kicking in, or the next interest rate increase. Why would you go on this article? Why would you do it? To let people know? For attention? Do they get paid? I mean, I've seen Facebook journalists on Facebook troll around for people to partake in these articles. If you've done it, let me know, guys. Let me know, because, I guess it's the same thing people post on Oz Finance or on Reddit. The couple are now spending 70% of their income on their home loans. They've got two. They have two. Why do they have two? And Monique hasn't been able to work while caring for their son. I'm pretty stressed. I try not to think about it, he says. Did he have to buy the second house? This doesn't make... I'm assuming he had to buy it because the rental market is so insane in Perth, but I don't... I'm doing a construction project right now. My house is not livable. I'm renting. We're just extending the lease. We found one. There's no bloody way I'm going to go and buy another house because we're having another kid. What, you can't bring them up in a rental? You want to humble them a bit. Come on. It's better to be ignorant than... What? It's better to be... No, it's not. Than face the reality we might not make the next progress payment. We might end up having to sell this home. Well, so what one are you going to sell? That's the thing. More households slip into the red. I don't get this. I don't understand this situation. Well, so they bought another house. Surely you could find something to rent. It doesn't need to be perfect. I mean, come on, people. Maybe it's their first kid. Could that be why? That could be why you really are a little bit more precious with your first one until you expect your seventh. You see how rough the kids are. So, over the past year, new data from ratings agency S&P shows the number of households that have fallen a month or more behind in their mortgage repayments has increased in every state and territory, with parts of Victoria, New South Wales, Tasmania, NT, and the outback regions of WA and Queensland feeling the pain. Now, are we returning to normal? Is this just like interest rates where they're returning to normal? The cash rate is returning to normal. Now, if you're in this situation and you're over-borrowed, let us know what you plan to do. I mean, are you going to sell? You're going to get out? You're going to just cut back on costs? You're going to rent out some rooms? Rent out the whole house and move back in with family? If you have that luxury. Rent it out and move into a caravan or a tent. So, Outback Queensland recorded the worst arrears rate in the country at 3.64%, followed by Tasmania's southeast coast at 3.33%, Shepparton in northern New South Wales, northern Victoria, 2.68%, West Australia's Outback at 2.7%, Darwin in 2.6%, and Sydney Southwest at 2.46%. So none of the real well-to-do areas, I'd say. Just a lot of regional areas. I mean, Outback Queensland. In Victoria, the regional city of Shepparton in the Goulburn Valley was feared the worst in the state, but Melbourne's northwest, encompassing Salisbury, Riddles Creek, and Lancefield were not far behind, with a 30-plus day arrears rate of 2.26%. Melbourne's west, which includes the cities of Wyndham, Hobson Bay, Brimbank, and Melton, was the three worst at 1.8%. In New South Wales, Sydney Southwest, stretching from Greendale in the west to Liverpool in the east, recorded the most concerning arrears rate in the state of 2.49%. I mean, here's the thing. These are just percentages. We're looking 2% here, 2% there. How many of them are being repossessed? That's the real issue here. Once they start repossessing and the banks start selling, which the banks don't want to do, they don't give a shit about your house. They just want their money back. Other parts of Sydney include Blacktown, the Blue Mountains, Southern Highlands, Shoalhaven, are also feeling the pinch, sitting around 1.8%. A similar rate of mortgage default was seen in the state's far west and Oran region, stretching from Broken Hill in the west to Dubbo in the east, as well as the Riverina region encompassing Griffith and Wagga Wagga. West Australia's outback, which includes Broome, Carrareth, Geraldton, and Kalgoorlie, recorded the worst arrears rate in the state at 2.7%, followed by the Wheat Belt at 2.28%. The major centres of Mandurah, And Bunbury recorded the second and third worst at 1.96 and 1.82. Remember when we were looking at Mandurah? And it was all meant to be, on the verge of collapse, coming down. So many people at risk of defaulting. And what happened with all of that? What happened with all of that? Nothing. So, Queensland, Outback, Mount Isa, come on, 3.64%. How many of those are miners or people that lost their jobs? Mackay, Isaac with Sunday, Wide Bay, 1.69 and 0.61. So arrears haven't peaked yet. S&P Global Rating Analyst Erin Kitson said, while the percentage of households missing mortgage repayments was low, it was a lagging indicator. We certainly expect arrears to continue to rise in terms of how long and so forth. Ultimately, that will depend on where interest rates head and when they finally peak. At this point, we expect arrears to continue to increase into the first half of next year, Ms. Kitson said. But really importantly, when it comes to arrears, the employment story is key. Low unemployment is helping temper arrears. We certainly haven't seen mortgage arrears peak yet. There are further arrears increases ahead of us. Yeah, arrears doesn't mean you lose your home. As Commonwealth Banks posted a $10.5 billion profit this month, the lender revealed it had reached out to 100,000 customers, most at risk of default. The bank holds 25% of the residential loan book in Australia, which equals around 2 million mortgages. Now, here's another thing. When you've got, the Citizens Party and everyone saying that bail-ins and all of this stuff, and you've got people running around terrified of the banks. You think they're going to let CommBank, you think the government isn't going to intervene if it all goes to shits? Come on. The last bank that I can think of that went under here in Australia, well, not bank, building society, was Pyramid down in Victoria, and they paid people their money back through a levy that all the citizens had to bear. We're a shared burden society here in Australia. We're not a libertarian free market society. Don't kid yourself. Don't blame the problems on Australia on the free market, guys, because we ain't got it. And I don't think our populace will ever want it. So Aussies are taking on a second job. Grind mindset. Social worker Gabby Glass has unique insight on the Australia's cost of living crisis. She's experiencing mortgage stress, while also seeing a growing number of people reaching out for help in her regional town of Castlemaine, northwestern Melbourne. She's been forced to take on a second job offering counselling services during the night to make ends meet. Well, wouldn't you be doing that beforehand? Particularly when you're younger, to build up some extra cash and do extra work? I would be going backwards if I wasn't working the two jobs. If something doesn't happen to one of my jobs, I'd be going into the red certainly, she said. The single mother told the ABC she did not have any savings because she had to raise two kids on her own after her husband died when the girls were young. I don't have any buffer, which Philip Lowe talks about, and all these people talk about, she said. This is probably an argument for life insurance, isn't it? For all the fathers out there, guys. I think there's a lot of people out there who don't have this magical buffer that the Reserve Bank thinks we have, who are working their guts out to keep things going. Yeah, it's a two-speed economy here in Australia, guys. You've got some people who are going to be doing fine and others who are going to be doing it a bit tough. So the National Debt Helpline has recorded almost a 30% increase in the number of calls compared to the same time last year. Victoria, Dan Andrews' favourite state, was disproportionately higher, recording a 44% jump, while the number of people visiting the helpline's website almost doubled over the past year. Susan Long from Vinnie's WA said she could not remember a time like this in her 12 years as a financial counsellor. Yeah, we haven't had a recession in Australia in 28 years. The last one was not a real recession, okay? It doesn't count. It doesn't count. So, of course, you've only got 12 years experience. It's not that much. Get us to some grizzly bastard who was there in the 80s. I think it's a perfect storm because everything happened at one time. There's the increased cost of living. Everything's gone up. Supermarket prices, petrol, insurance, and then capped with increased payments in mortgage repayments. Some people have some small savings buffer there, but they've gone through it now and there's nothing left. Nobody wants to lose their home. They're highly stressed. We've had clients who are at risk. Nobody likes to get on the phone and speak to someone about the finances. Usually it's the taboo that nobody wants to talk about. They're having a sense of shame. They don't want people to know they're struggling. Yeah, I can appreciate that. Let's have a bit of a chat about all of this, guys. Now, here's the thing. We're going to have a particular slant, because this is an ABC article, on the people who are doing it tough. But the sad reality is you're always going to have some people that are doing it tough. You've got some people that have probably borrowed too much. I mean, the couple here had bought 2 houses. Why? Okay, explain to me why. Did they want to get ahead? Maybe, you know? They thought, oh yeah, one will be an investment. We'll live in this one rather than paying rent. Rent money's dead money. Sure, it's dead money, but it means you're not taking the burdens of owning a property and another loan. Yeah, I mean, I honestly think we're going to see a 2-speed economy here. You'll have a lot of people that are just struggling, who've taken on too much, whose circumstances mean they can't make ends meet. But you're going to have a lot of people as well who are doing real well and who won't even notice it. And frankly, I think a lot of the financial giga-chads watching the channel, even those of you that are all doomer, are still doing pretty bloody good. Anyway, you let me know what you think, guys. Would you buy another house? When I don't get that couple. I don't get it. There has to be more to the story than that. Although it could just be naivety. You know, the first kid has to all be perfect. You grow out of that, trust me. Anyway, guys, check out HeiserBim or Heiser Does for other content I create. If you want to support us, you can on YouTube or Patreon. Use our referral links, buy a Pocket Squares, or call me if you need an architect. Take care. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.